This is Matt Casalo with the RhinestoneWorld.com.
It's Richard Greaves with ScreenMaking.com.
This is Stacy Marshall with Printwear Magazine.
Brian Walker with RTP Apparel.
And you're listening to Two Regular Guys
Podcast. Hosted by Aaron Montgomery and Terry Combs.
Keep on listening.
Welcome to the show. It is Friday, May 14th, 2021. I'm Eric Campbell, and I'm sitting in for Terry Combs. You can find me at ericcampbell.com.
Excellent. Welcome, Eric. So my name's Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. Eric, today you've brought in some fantastic gentlemen, and I just had a chance to meet them right before the show there, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with them. We're going to be bringing on Jeff Fuller of Fuller Embroidery Works and Justin Armenta of JA Digitizing, both of the Embroidery Nerd, to talk about building community, which they've been doing over there at the, I hear it's called M Nerd sometimes. Is that what the cool kids say?
I think that's what I say, and I think it's the Embroidery Nerd,
yeah.
and I'm literally like reading the hat. You can't listen to me, right?
All right. Well, you're
I
a
call
cool
it
kid
that.
to me, so I'm going with that. But so Embroidery Nerds, and like I said, we're going to be talking about building community, teaching, learning online, and of course, we will get to some embroidery talk, so I will sit there and smile big when we get to that section. No, I was kidding. I'm really excited. I learn a ton each time we get a chance to talk embroidery, and I love having you here, Eric. So let's do this.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, though, let's just real quick talk briefly the reason that you get to sit in.
Yes.
Obviously, we love having you, but somebody is absent. Terry is missing, and where's Terry at these days?
Well, Terry is off at a show, and that's the thing, at a live show. I believe he's GPX is where he's at right now. This is Irving, correct? Because now I've gotten myself mixed up.
Yes, it is Irving.
So he's in Irving, Texas right now doing a show. And the thing that was crazy is right before we got started here, he sent us in a picture of our friend Clay Barbera's teaching. He's doing a session right now, pre-show sessions, and the picture of these sessions that he sent us, 70 people were in the session. So we're talking about a return to in-person classes and shows being back online. And I'm going to say, without revealing everything about it, I don't know about you, Aaron, but I've got a lot of people talking to me about where I'm going to be in the second half of the year. It looks like we're doing a lot of contract signing coming soon. So hopefully that means we'll be able to see people in person. And also, if anybody hasn't heard, CDC guidelines are starting to change about masking and everything else. So if you're vaccinated, it looks like it's starting to be time to get back to things.
Interesting. Yep. Well, I don't sign contracts, but I just show up at random places. So
Aaron just shows up where there's a microphone and starts talking. That's fine.
So now I'm excited. We are going to be actually driving to most of the locations this year from here in St. Louis area. So kind of staying somewhat Midwest. We will get down to Atlanta for the Printing United show later in the year, but definitely excited to hit the DAX shows. It's always great to get a email from Scott Ritter over there at the DAX shows with kind of the update. You can just obviously it's an email, but you can read in the way that he's writing it how super incredibly excited he is to get back to live in-person events. So I know it was hard for them, and so it's going to be great. So looking forward to all that. And I've heard good things about the Graphics Pro Expo out there, and looking forward to everybody getting back in, with the Impressions Expo happening, coming up as well, and then you talked about DAX, Printing United, Applique Getaway. Speaking of that, good morning, Christine Shreve. Hello, how are you, ma'am? And good morning to Gusta from Sweden as well. Look at this guy, Eric. You were like talking, pressing buttons, the whole nine. This is impressive.
I've heard I can also walk and chew gum. That's it's been reported. Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
we have a couple more comments from folks. I'd like to bring everybody in. We have Tanya saying, good morning. Frank Dunn from out in the UK. Good afternoon, guys. And I always feel for Frank. The joke is, Jeff says this all the time, that Frank is a robot. He never sleeps. Because Frank is like at every show, sharing everything, really engaging with us. So thank you for being here, Frank. Yeah. And Christine, unfortunately, says she's going to miss the DAX shows this year. And like I said, I'm efforting hard right now, guys. And Jim also might have a point. Too many live videos on Friday. I don't know if there could ever be too many, but there sure are a lot.
Yeah. No such thing, Jim. Come on. That's kidding. Good morning, Todd. Yes, I like you said, Christine will be missing the DAC show. So, but if you want to see her out there in person, you can definitely catch her at the Applique Getaway. And,
registration opening tomorrow. So there you go.
There you go.
There's your free plug, Christine.
Yep, exactly. And actually, we mentioned Printing United, and the two regular guys will be there. Blow up couch in tow. And so good morning, Amanda, over there from Printing United. So thanks for tuning in. And awesome. All right. Well, you know what, Eric? I see that there's a dad joke. I was not the bringer of said dad joke.
Really? I thought this was your dad joke for sure. It must be Terry has snuck in his own dad joke just to make sure that he doesn't get run out.
It was not you. Okay. All right. I was going to say, this one's not as heady as your dad joke normally is.
No, usually my dad jokes, you only know about 3/4 of the way through that you're in the dad joke, and that's how I like it. How about this? I'll take the dad joke. I'm Terry today. I mean, I certainly have the hairline for it. So let's go ahead and grab Terry's joke and go for it. All right. So today's dad joke that I've been waiting for. What did the ocean say to the shore?
I don't know, Eric. What did the ocean say to the shore?
Nothing. It just waved.
All right, I do have to confess, Eric, that was actually me that put that in there. So.
Oh, okay, fine. Hoist me up and let me tell the dad joke. I get it. Here, I thought Terry was
yeah, brought to you by a 10-year-old, so we're all good.
Okay, well then I feel good. Also, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my son just turned 10 on Monday, so thank you very much, Eric.
Oh, awesome.
All right, Eric. Well, let's keep moving here. We're excited because, we want to talk to these guys. I've heard that they don't talk a lot. That's just the rumor on the street is that they don't talk a whole lot. So we're going to try to bring them out of the show.
Trying to get him into this whole live podcasting thing. It's like pulling teeth.
All right. Let's keep moving then so we can get to those guys.
All right. So before we dive in, I want to thank you, everybody who's checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. We are always looking for new guests. So if anyone would like to join us, go ahead and have them go to calendly.com/2regularguys with their show ideas. And if you're listening to the podcast version of the show, we would appreciate you sharing the Two Regular Guys with your industry friends so they can become regulators too. We would love and appreciate you getting a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching us live right now, please join in the comments and questions. Reach out to your industry friends and have them join us today too. Great people on, and we would love to have them join the conversation.
Yep, let's bring those regulators in and get some of the reciprocators. Is that the take-up folks, right?
Yeah, that's the take-up people, the reciprocators. So yeah,
there we go.
Reciprocators are in. The nerds are in.
Let's get the nerds in here.
All the nerds in. Let's get everybody in because this is like. And actually, we had a comment that I have to bring in, and this is from John. Brings up, good morning. Some of my favorite people on one podcast. Yeah, this is a super show. This has like all the main embroidery folks are going to come together today, and I'm happy to have you guys in because it's all these supportive, awesome people from these great communities, and we're happy to see you people here.
Yeah, and then I'll just slide out of the way, and you guys.
I hear you've done a little bit of community building.
I have done some community building in my day.
Maybe some amount of education. You might have something to say.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, let's hear a quick word from Printing United, and then we will get the gentleman in here shortly.
All right.
All right, exciting stuff happening there. So definitely make sure that Orlando, October 6th through 8th is on your calendar. I saw all sorts of things flash across the screen that caught my attention. Cafe and Beer Garden was one.
I mean, there will be printing education while we're there, I'm pretty sure, as far and also meeting a lot of vendors. But also, that, and admittedly, all I did was see the name of the podcast because that's me. It's like, oh, dedicated podcast booth with 2 regular guys at Shop Talk. That sounds great.
yeah, gonna be a lot of fun. And Amanda from SGIA lives down there, so we're all just gonna crash at her house, I hear. So that it'll be.
Is this the invite?
Email from her in just a second, but.
Well, great things happen over at Printing United, and happy to have them on. And I'm glad that we're going to go ahead and have our own presence there too. So great to be with all the different folks at Printing United, and in that kind of great nexus of all the different printing titles are there. So Amanda says, you know it.
Yes,
you don't know what you're asking for, Amanda. I don't know. I think that's mildly dangerous.
Yeah, it may be the worst idea you've ever had, Amanda. All right. Well, let's do this, Eric. I'm going to just jump in here. Let's bring in our guests. First, let me introduce to you Jeff Fuller. Started his venture into embroidery as a patch collector. His curiosity led him into starting Fuller Embroidery Works with one single needle machine in his living room. His obsession with the craft led him to purchase 2 more commercial machines and open his doors. In 2019, Jeff founded the Embroidery Nerd Group on Facebook, intending to educate and share tips with both new and veteran embroiderers. The group has flourished with over 2,000 members from 94 different countries. So we'll get Jeff here in just one second. And then Justin is a 27-year veteran of the industry, an award-winning digitizer, owner of JA Digitizing Studios, and an embroidery production manager for a multi-head embroidery and screen print company with experience in drawing prep from the old tablet digitizing and operating embroidery machines. He currently works with logo design, vector art, and screen printing and embroidery production management, as well as his primary work in digitizing. Though new to the education side of the game, Justin finds himself loving to teach and engage with the Embroidery Nerd Group. Gentlemen, welcome into the podcast.
Good morning, guys.
Oh, I think you're still muted there, Jeff.
Hello, thank you for having us.
There we go. I thought he was, I'm like, oh boy, he really doesn't talk. No, just kidding.
Who had the over-under? I thought it was for sure going to be Aaron. It's usually Aaron.
I know, it is normally me. And then we missed our opportunity to overdub him in Spanish, Eric. We've got to get that figured out.
I can only do German. That's sadly me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I can't do Spanish either. Right.
Terry likes to do that.
Well, welcome in. Thank you guys for being here. Justin, Jeff, so appreciate your time. Eric, let's get into this. Let's start asking these guys some questions. So
we can't wait for it. Honestly, though, I know a lot of people
here today.
I know we have a lot of people who are already fans, and I actually want to say, because we have people very excited, let's bring a couple comments real early. Brian Bailey, Creative and Brilliance, says, yes, embroidery show. Happy Friday. So happy to see everybody there. And I love this. Here comes Frank Dunn, and fans of all of us. I'm a regulated, reciprocated nerd. So apparently we got fans in the audience, guys. But let's go ahead and start this off by learning a little bit more about you two. Give us a little detail about how you got your start in embroidery and your decorated apparel industry. I mean, I want to know, are you in the accidental career camp like I am, where you slid in sideways with a degree that makes no sense, or did you actually mean to do this? And let's go ahead and why don't we go ahead and start with you, Jeff?
Okay. I was going to let Justin go first. I was waiting for you to say Justin, but I got this.
Go first. I never know who to do first, so I just start rotating.
There you go.
Every other question, you'll just get switched. I'm sorry.
So I actually, I have a college degree in video game programming. And so I don't do any of that. I graduated at the height of the recession around 2008, I want to say. Okay. And so I graduated with my fancy degree, and I walked into Walmart, and I worked at Walmart for 4 years. And then after that, I went and was a system administrator for a gas station company, where I worked at their corporate office, and we were in charge of the roughly 2,000 stores' computers. And then I had a son and daycare. And it pretty much turned into me. We were just using my entire paycheck to pay for daycare.
Wow.
And so it was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay at home. And during the time I worked as a system administrator, I started collecting embroidered patches, and I started working from home, and I still collected patches. And then my son went to school. And during school time, it was like, well, what am I going to do? And I liked embroidered patches, so I went out and I bought an embroidery machine and software, And I thought, I'm going to bang my head on the counter here, and I'm going to do my own digitizing. I'm never going to send anything out, and I'm going to run everything on my machine. And, lo and behold, I learned a lot of things along the way. But that's pretty much how I got started in embroidery.
Nice. That's great. I mean, it's a story we've heard before, but I don't think that it's something that people always think about. I mean, because everybody likes to get into this like commercial versus home debate, and I love to hear it's like I had a single needle. I started out, I was doing it on my own, and then went commercial from that. That's awesome. Yeah. And Justin, how about you? How did you get started?
I would say accidental career myself. I had a family member that actually owned a embroidery company here in town, and while I was in school studying architecture, she brought me in doing the art prep for her in-house digitizer, where back in the day when we used to blow up designs 6:1, and just her teaching me, I had the technical side of things as far as the drawing and the line work, but just her teaching me how thread works and angles and how everything applies to embroidery. Eventually, I got into production management with her, running machines with her. We lost our in-house digitizer, and we started using outsourcing to probably one of the best digitizers I've seen. So I was able to watch his designs run. He was a great guy. I would pick up the phone sometimes and say, hey, I see you do this, I see you do that. And he would talk to me about his design. So learned a lot from him. Unfortunately, he left the industry eventually. And it was years and years and years of us just trying to find that digitizer that worked for us. And so we had the Wilcom system back then. So I spent a lot of time, kind of like your story of fighting your old machines and trying to figure out ways to make it run well. I was on editing, and by the time I started editing design so much, it's like I should just do this myself. So that's how I got into digitizing. So
I think everybody has that feeling. We're like, yeah, I've been pushing around pixels. I've been pushing around individual stitches so long, I might as well just make this thing. That may be one of the pressures that brings people in. I know for me, it was just like, oh, I can control these machines. There's a computer by which I can make the file that's doing this. Oh, well, I'll have to do that then. I have to be able to make my own stuff now. That has to happen. But yeah,
I think that's how most people get into the industry, is that necessity is the mother of all creation there. And that's really awesome that you guys have kind of started in that, okay, let's figure this out. And you took the initiative to jump in, do it yourself and grow. And now you're at a place where you're building community and you're teaching, you're sharing. And I love that. So before we get into a whole bunch of embroidery talk here, in fact, we've already got an embroidery question in the chat already that we'll get to, Dan, so not to worry. But I want to talk a little bit about something that obviously is near and dear to my heart, is this idea of community building. So Jeff, I guess start me off here. What made you want to start the Embroidery Nerd group? And then Justin, I've got a question for you as well. But Jeff, start me off there. What was the when did it go, oh, you know what, I need to do this. This is something I want to do? So
I guess we could call this a series of unfortunate events, but it actually worked out a little bit better than that. So as a lot of people know, my very first multi-needle machine was a Ricoma, and I didn't have any problems with this machine, and I liked it, and it worked well for me. But aside from that, I'm trying not to push too many brands, but Ricoma was actually very pivotal in all of this. So they came out with their software, the Ricoma Chroma software, and I was in the owners group, and they started bundling the software, the machines that they were selling, and people were saying, hey, I need help with this software. And there wasn't really any at the time. And one day somebody said, I really wish there was a group that was dedicated to this software that we could go and ask these questions so it doesn't get lost in all the machine stuff. And so I ended up starting the Chroma Digitizing Help group on Facebook. And I did that for a while, and I did live videos. I taught in there. And I actually had somebody reach out to me, and he said, his name is Bruce. He said, you should really have all this stuff up on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, I could probably do that. And he says, I have a YouTube channel reserved that I haven't used in forever. It's called Embroidery Nerd. And I'll transfer that over to you. And I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. So we were working on transferring that over to me. And then about that same time, Matthew, who co-founded it with me, actually came over to me and he's like, "Hey, Jeff, we should do a website or a blog and we should start putting all this together." And I said, "Yeah, you know what? It's ironic because I just got an embroidery channel on YouTube called Embroidery Nerd." So then we went through and started reserving domain names and Instagram, Facebook page names. And we started into that and we said, you know what? I transitioned a lot from teaching in the Chroma Digitizing Help group, and we started the Embroidery Nerd Facebook page group. And we started building up the community in there. And that's how it all started.
Cool. So, and that idea of teaching and sharing led to this community building. That's fantastic. So, Justin, why do you think these communities are so important? Why do you think that people flock to them? And what are you guys seeing over in that group as far as, why do people show up and get so passionate about what's going on inside of these things?
I think just with today's world and social media and it's a click of a button, you could get an answer to a question that you have. It's not, back when I started, I had the trade publication that I was waiting for Eric's article that I was going to read. You would have formal training if you purchased the software, if you purchased a machine, or you can hire somebody from those companies. But other than that, there really wasn't any outlet to get quick questions answered. So the community like ours, the group of people that we have are so great. It's got a point where everybody knows each other's fortes, where if I happen to be the one awake on my computer and see a question, I say, "Oh, you know what? Jeff can answer that. Tag him on it." So he's going to be the one answering it. Or there's even group members that we know. Hey, we see a lot of work, done from this member. Talk to them. They're great. It's immediate. It's people willing to help. So it's just a great environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when people are there with that intention to help and share and teach and learn, and because we all have heard of the Facebook groups where there's drama and all the trash, but sounds like you guys don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Maybe a little bit, but who knows?
I don't think any group is without drama. There's always a little bit of drama that goes on, and I think any professional space is going to have it. But what I'll say is, from someone who is semi-outside, semi-inside, I'm definitely there with the Embroidery Nerd group, but I was not in on the founding of it or anything. I'm not on the board. But what I'm going to say is, from that perspective, really incredible people, and the stuff that you guys are doing is just outstanding and stellar. The reason it's grown so well is because it really does fit with that ethos where everybody's sharing, everybody's trying to raise each other up, and it really feels that way, and very inclusive too. I think that's, if we've seen anything in the groups recently this year, and maybe I'll have you guys comment a little bit on this. I know we're a little off track, but I think we've seen some groups who are trying to silo stuff off again, trying to block out different voices, and I don't see that happening in the Embroidery Nerd, and I think it's important, and it makes it really vital. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'll start the rotation. Sure. Didn't go clockwise. Yeah, clockwise.
Keep going.
So, it's when I first started, and I wasn't into the embroidery side, I was in the patch side. Yeah. When I would ask people for help, they would say it's a trade secret. And it was actually when I found webinars that were done and articles that were done that I actually found that there were people that were willing to learn, people that were willing to teach. Yeah. And it's weird to me that people would wall off their group to education, or very, very specific education. Yeah. Because once you start doing that, you start excluding people. Yeah. And when people have a question and they ask a question and somebody goes, "Oh, you know what? That's in the user manual," and they post a link to the user manual, and the admins delete it because they posted a link. You run into problems where if you try to control too much, you're going to start ostracizing people. Yeah. Now, in our group, we do come out with a heavy hand if it comes to, unsolicited PMs, private messages. We have a really heavy hand on that. It's a one and done, out you go. And we do that because we want to foster an environment where people can come and ask a question and not get harassed.
Yeah, true. True. I mean, I think the sales aspect of that stuff, hey, there's no dirty thing about selling. We're here to make money sometimes, depending on what we're doing. I think for education, a lot of us are doing it. I don't want to say at a loss, but we're putting in a lot of effort for what we get back. That's just the real truth. And some of it is a lot of the free education we put out there. Of course, we're not expecting anything back. However, like I said, there's nothing wrong with there being selling, but there is something wrong with, I think, the predatory PM thing, which happens in all the groups.
It's funny because before I knew Jeff, I was in another group that I was, I got kind of into Facebook groups and stuff kind of late in the game. I think they were full blown by the time I looked into it and started seeing these things in these groups. But I was in another group that it seemed like any question was answered by a flood of digitizers trying to get their work. And it was like, this question has nothing to do with that. And it got frustrating, and it got to a point where I wasn't using it all that often.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Jeff or Matt that posted in this group that said, hey, you want another great embroidery group? Check us out over here. No drama, none of this stuff. Because, I mean, you even see group members complaining that that's all they're seeing on these groups now. So I headed over, saw this group. It's like, oh, yeah, this is where I want to be.
Well, and we know if anybody's been following you, you've been blogging and doing content for some time too. It's like Justin's been putting out this good content and teaching. When I saw you getting into that group too, I'm like, that's such a perfect fit because you've been out there, sharing and teaching too.
Yeah.
Since previous to the group stuff, since previous to all the live stuff, and actually leads me to my next question. And I hate to just run right into it again. I know I'm like manipulating the time here, but hey, these are two of my favorite people online too. So I just want to ask a bunch of questions. But one thing that we all have in common here, aside from us saying the word stitch about 1,000 times a day until it stops having a meaning, is that we've all spent a lot of time in the last year going live with education. What are your favorite things about going live, and what's been like the hardest thing about teaching without a net? Justin, let's start with you on that one.
I think my most favorite thing is it's like hanging out with friends, discussing what we love doing. And if there's a part of that where I get to share my knowledge and teach someone something new, like you said, I've been in the industry for 27 years. I watch Two Regular Guys every Friday. I watch your show every Friday. Pretty much everything you put out from like I said, the articles they used to write in print magazines. To this day, I still learn. I mean, I'm not gonna stop learning. So if I can put my knowledge out there and with Jeff and Matt and Jerry Lee with the group, it's such a laid back environment that it's easy. It's actually fun. So I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
Well, my favorite thing, I guess, about going live is the user engagement. So it's really, really nice to see people. I guess it kind of validates what you do when they show up. They're in the comments and they're interacting with you. I started when nobody watched my feed.
Yep.
And there were weeks that it was over and over and over again that nobody watched nobody interacted, nobody joined. And occasionally, I get like 15 watches of my video and that was it. And that's how I started. And so doing that, it was kind of rough to do it, but I thought it'll get better. And when I finally started having people show up and engaging and asking, it was like, it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's all being a part of that community. I like to see, I'm looking in this list in the private comments and I'm seeing names that I recognize that come to every show. And it's really, really great to have that sense of community that you get when you put something together like this and have interaction with that community.
100%. And what I'm going to say is there's a lesson to be learned for any of you now who are starting out with content. You have to go through the 5 views period. That is not, you're not going to just show up and everybody in the world comes on. Plus right now we're flooded. A lot of people were home with nothing to do. There's a lot of new podcasts that started in the last 6 months. And heck, we had the comment earlier, is too many live shows on Friday. Once again, I disagree because I will listen to live shows while I digitize all day long. But at the same time, I'm like, you have to go through this period where you just do it. I'll say for the Take Up, my show, I don't think it really hit its stride until 6 months in. And even now, it's growing, but it's incremental. I think that you don't know when it's going to grow. And what I will do, I'm going to bring up some comments because we do have some of your fans here, and some of what I love is people who I know too, which has been really awesome. Kind of see all these people, these names that we know really well. I mean, certainly we have Carolyn, who's awesome, Carolyn Cagle, who's hopping in for the show. She is great, and I've worked with her, had done some embroidery projects with her. Awesome, and she follows all of us. Cindy comes in from Texas. She says, I have really enjoyed y'all's Facebook page. Hopefully I did the y'alls correctly. My dad's from Southern New Mexico, so I got a little y'all in me.
She's from Texas, so we could understand the y'alls, right?
Hey, like I said, Southern New Mexico, you'll get the drawl out. My dad's drawl will come out if you don't if you don't get careful with that. And Carolyn talking about other groups that are awesome, like that I think kind of share the same spirit. The Women in Garment Decoration group that Christine started with Carolyn. Love that group. It's super supportive. Everyone's helpful. And it's like having 800 people cheering you on. And I think that's part of what we're talking about here. Though, for a couple more comments, as we have to bring people in, we have Dan Campbell saying, drama in groups, Illustrator is better than Corel Draw. So he's dropping a bomb in there.
Dan's trying to stir it up here on the Two Regular Guys too. I can tell that, Dan.
I'll tell you this, but I have about had it with Software Wars. I don't need any kind of Software Wars. And one of the cool things you'll see in the Embroidery Nerd group as well is that people will teach and tell you all the different terms from whichever software you're in, which is awesome. I think that's the way to do it. We teach theory around here as well, so that's how that goes. Michelle says, I appreciate you all. Thank you for helping all of us. That's awesome. And Frank, who's got his own group as well, he's got a Wilcom Help group, says, this is why I started our group. So I love that. And Cindy, one more here. Y'all are safe if I answer. I am still learning to digitize. But that's the thing. Everybody's voice at whichever time you're in your career is valuable. I think that's also true. So I think that's why that interaction is so cool. And like I said, I see that in your guys' group all the time. So it's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, when you talk about that, you asked the question of something about digitizing, and then like you guys had kind of mentioned, there would probably get 27 PMs in 5 minutes from quote unquote digitizers offering their services. And in fact, I actually at first thought that Justin didn't like me because he's never spammed me asking me to, but even though I don't do embroidery anyhow. No, I'm sorry, Justin, I'm just being funny. All right, you guys. So the regulators, the Two Regular Guys, we're consistently kind of beating that drum of quality education. So talk to us about your experiences with, being education and why you decided to kind of start your own more formal classes and webinars. I know that you guys are getting that stuff out there, and that's great. And we love more quality education, but what was where did that come from? So Jeff, would you start us off on that question?
Oh boy, do I have stories. I swear I don't talk a lot except for when my mouth is open. So when I was doing the Chroma Help group and really, really early on in the Embroidery Nerd, I actually did webinars. I did about 3 of them. And my very first one, I talked to the person ahead of time, and it was more like a one-on-one class. I was trying to get familiar with the platform and see how I liked it. And I wasn't charging for them, and I was just, I'm here to share my knowledge. Let's see how this goes. And during that webinar, she left her mic on. She had her camera on, and so it was a lot more like a one-on-one class. And I could see her washing the dishes and talking to her husband and arguing with her son and yelling at the dog. And when it was over, and it was a long webinar, it felt like forever. But when it was over, I waited like a day. I sent her a message. I'm like, hey, what did you think? Did I deliver good content? And this and that. She goes, oh, I didn't really know. I wasn't really paying attention. And that was my very first webinar. The second webinar I did was about 5 people. And it was a very similar experience when I sent out the questionnaires. The responses I got were, oh, everything was good that I saw. And I responded back like, that you saw. I mean, well, I was watching TV too. And I was like, man, I can't believe this. And my third webinar was the exact same experience. It was rough, and honestly, it turned me off from doing formal type education. And so I took a step back from that a while, and I watched and I looked at education that I was going to, and the stuff that I was seeing online, and I noticed something. And it's, if you're going to do formal education, if you're going to spend your time, a week and a half prepping to do a webinar, then you need to charge for it. And it's not necessarily because you don't want to give out that content for free, because I would gladly give the content out for free. but people won't value it. They won't value the time that you put in. They won't pay attention. They won't learn. If it's free, they'll go, oh, it's free, I can watch it whenever, and they'll do something else. And they won't ever really come back to it. And so that's when I was like, you know what, education, it has a value. And to spend, Justin's been putting together his webinar for like 2-3 weeks. He's been working on it hard. And he's charging, less than I think he probably should, but we are starting out
all the time, Eric and I too. So,
but the people that are coming in and they're signing up for it, we would get a lot more signups, but it would be a lot more distracting. People would get a lot less from it if they didn't pay for it. If they put out 5, 10, I think I just signed up for one for $80. If you spend money, you're more invested in it. You're going to pay better attention. You're going to appreciate the education more because you invested in it too. And so we do a lot of free education. You guys do a lot of free education as well. And when you do the free education, you do it for you because you enjoy giving out the education. You do it for the people that are out there that want to watch the education. And then ultimately, you're hoping that you can build your community around this education.
Yeah.
And as much as I hate to say that to build community, you need to charge a little bit, but that's actually what it is. People need to be invested in it a little bit. And Eric said, and I don't know if it was on the 2 regular guys or the take up or the half, because I watch all of them, but he said that you got to build your tribe. Yeah. And the tribe are the people that are going to invest in you just as much as you invest in them. And you have to give more than you take. And that is your investment into your tribe. You invest more into your tribe to build your tribe. And then you have a group of people that, I had a problem with sublimation, and I was looking at buying a sublimation printer, and somebody from my tribe, air quotes, they reached out to me and they said, hey, I have a sublimation printer. I'll send you some transfers so you can try it. It becomes this, everybody wants everybody else to succeed. Yeah. And it becomes less competitive. And so the reason why we're going more into the formal education is we want to be able to bring in some bigger names. We want to be able to put out a higher quality of content, which is, Justin spent weeks prepping this, and it's all on his time, and he should be compensated for some of it. But, we want to be able to bring some larger names in that maybe haven't done education and that they can give it a try, and we can be that platform for them to step off and move up.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Justin, I want to pose the same question for you, but real quick, I love what you're saying there, Jeff, and that whole idea of that investment. It is important, because the reason that we educate, the reason that people educate, is to help somebody to get better at a craft, a skill, better in life, whatever the case may be. And like you said, if they're not invested in it, then they're not going to, again, take that and put it to good use. So you've kind of wasted that education in a sense if people aren't going to use it. It'd be like, training a teacher, and then the teacher shows up at school and the kids just kind of get to decide if they're going to show up or not, and most of them don't. And so the teachers are talking to themselves, and we pay our teachers at school, and I think this is what we're seeing happening now is kind of, to me, education 2.0 or 3.0, or however you want to look at that, is this idea that we're always learning, we're always growing together as a community. And so how do we support each other? Sometimes it's a monetary investment, sometimes it's sending some sublimation transfers, sometimes it's just being there to help, shoulder to cry on, hand to cheers a beer to, that kind of thing. But anyhow, so talk to us a little bit more about, from your side, Justin, that this idea of the formal education. Sounds like we should probably let you go so you can keep working on your webinar, but no, sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. But talk to us about this idea of formal education.
I think it's like Jeff was saying. I think, just being in the group daily, having your Facebook open and seeing a question that either I know I can answer, or I know somebody that can, so I tag them. it's almost like these quick conversations that you're just kind of walking through the crowd and saying things here and there. The formal webinars, I think it's like, all right, everybody gather up. We're going to talk about something. So you know that everybody's on the same page. You know, everybody's there to learn what you're talking about. I went into 3D just because I love doing it. I was seeing a lot of posts of people having issues that if they just had the right knowledge, they can definitely master their craft. When it comes to 3D Puff, I mean, Jeff and I, we're always trying different things. It'll be like, he'll send me a picture, like, check this out, check what I did. And I'm like, and it sparks something. And it's something that, like, I've never tried that. And I may take that idea and apply it to something else. So, like I said, I think it's just the idea of everybody gathering, discussing the same thing. There's not all this outside noise of other posts and conversations and then even another conversation that start in the post of something that didn't even start there. It just sometimes gets lost. So I think the formal education is kind of a little bit more focused.
Awesome.
I think that's, I have to agree. I will say on my part, I know I had a hard time the first time I ever charged for a webinar. Even now, I never know what to charge. Aaron has to fight with me because I'm always like, can't we just like reduce it like a little bit more? But I want the investment. I want people to be here, but then I want to charge less, but then I want to bring more. I'm like, that calculus is always there. But I will say, and like Justin says, it's this concept of having everybody on the same page. Nobody understands that better than people like us who've run or been in these groups, because the groups get off track, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it is definitely hard to herd these cats. To keep everybody in one area going toward one goal is really hard to do. But with everybody, everybody's got a few bucks on it, then it seems to go a little tighter. It seems to be that we're usually there for the same reasons, and you can actually get people together. Because I know the other thing I've had happen, and I know you guys had this, where somebody will they want to buy your time so that they can derail you into like private consultation. And there's nothing, and once again, if I'm there answering questions, folks, if I'm answering open questions, I say ask anything, I mean ask anything, and I know we all do that. But there are times where someone comes in for a webinar, but then is like, okay, now that I've got you, can you build my entire business for me on the back of this envelope real quick? And I think sometimes it's great to be in a webinar where we're like, here, it's focused. Here's the thing that we're doing.
To quote somebody famous, if you learn one thing that optimizes your production or saves you time in your job, the cost of the education is worth it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing I always tell people. It's like, we're doing things for profit here. We're trying to increase profit. Well, and I have to admit, the first time I have adapted that, I believe Terry Combs probably said that the first time, but you only got to give him credit once and then you can take it for yourself, because that's what he does to us. So he always says you always want to learn one thing, but I always add the rest of the detail because I can't quit talking. Suffice it to say, though, it's like a lot of us are here for a business. Now, certainly, I'm happy to have the craft people and the art people here. I know we all deal with craft and art people too. But if you're there to sell stuff eventually, the little nugget of education you get for the, usually sub $100 we're often charged for these things, is going to multiply into potentially thousands of dollars of income. You got to think a little longer term when you're learning something that's going to, shave minutes off of your embroidery runs forever. I think that maybe we should probably be a little more generous about that stuff.
Yeah.
But it truly amazes me that people, and this is, I see it all the time. People will buy an embroidery machine. They'll invest $13,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars into a machine.
Yeah.
And then they want to skimp on the education of how to run it.
Yeah. And I'm going to kick this to Aaron too a little bit. The other problem I kind of have with that is that people will then skimp on education for the business side. And that's the other problem. I understand we all love doing embroidery. I'm about to ask another embroidery question so we can all geek out on embroidery like we always do. But we also know that we're here to do business and make money and keep ourselves running. Plus, even if you just want to keep embroidering, I always tell people, make profit just so you can keep your machine running and buy new cool stuff. If that's all you want to do, pay yourself a wage and buy more gear to make more cool stuff. if that's all you want to do, I'm not going to argue with that. I know I'm not like some of the guys who are, pushing numbers and showing their, returns sheets. I'm like, no, I need this reflective thread that stuff's like $100 a pound, guys.
Yeah.
I really, I really need to sell some more stuff first. But yeah,
says, spend $1,200 on an iPhone, won't spend $100 on their business education. So.
Yeah, 100%.
And then Eric, can we get one more comment from Dan here?
Sure.
I like this one. It says, I'll always remember what my high school art teacher told me. People will only value your art if they pay for it. Free has no value. It promotes the idea that it's easy, quick, effortless, and does not require any special skill. This is why in business, you should always charge a digitizing fee, a design fee, a separation fee, etc. Yeah. I think that's a really great tip from Dan, and Dan has been doing this for a long time, and
yes,
so follow that advice, folks.
No, I also want to bring out Ramona though, because I think this is the other half of it. Real quick, Ramona says, "I love the nerd education. It's pure education and sharing of knowledge. It's not a paid commercial for product," and I like that too. I think even when we mention the products we use, I think that everybody here is there to educate no matter what. And that's something that's really great about the nerd group, is that that's really what it is. And Ramona also has done some education. If you haven't seen Ramona in the comments or out there, she's done education out of the goodness of her heart as well. So, I mean, I think there is a balance to be had, I think, where we give what we can for the people who are there. But I think all of us know the engaged people. I bet you if you asked any one of us, we know the 20 people who are there for the lives, who are there for everything, and who share and help and give back. There's more than that usually, but we have top names. I don't want to say we have favorites, but we know you. We know who you are.
Like picking out your favorite kids, Eric. Come on.
I won't say, but
it was really great when they put those into the admins, so you could click on a button and it's like, here are your top performers.
I love it.
You get extra
one other quick thing here, Eric, before we get into this embroidery stuff that I wanted to throw at these guys.
Sure.
Jeff had mentioned it earlier when we were chatting, this whole idea of the quote unquote trade secret. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen, over the last 10 years since we kind of started the Two Regular Guys podcast back 8-9 years ago, something like that. But this shift has been taking place pretty dramatically, especially with what happened in 2020. I think the amount of shift that occurred then was even bigger. But, back 10, 15 years ago, and Justin, you can probably speak to this too, with as long as you've been in the industry, is this whole idea of this trade secret. And I think that's, I don't know, I think that was a way that people that didn't have the ability to build community and tribe and all of that kind of stuff, that's how they felt like they could protect their business, is to quote unquote have these, what they thought were trade secrets. But I mean, I look back to when I started in this industry 20 years ago, and the stuff people were telling me were trade secrets. I got to talk to a whole bunch of other people along the way, and I came to find out everybody knew about it. So it wasn't necessarily a trade secret. It's just that somebody was too lazy to help somebody else out. And so again, Justin, I want to start with you real quick. What have you seen transition-wise when it comes to that idea of the trade secret?
Well, it's kind of like, I remember several years ago, there was a local embroiderer that I digitized for, and he wanted his production manager to learn digitizing and editing. So he actually hired me to go teach them. And people around me were like, why would you teach them? You're going to lose them as a customer now. And it's like, I don't look at it that way. I'm partnering them. I'm teaching them so they can do some in-house stuff. And to this day, they're still my customer.
Yeah.
And if anything, it makes the relationship between me and their production managers talking about their designs. They're educated. So I'm not beating my head against the wall talking to somebody that has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
So and it's beneficial in every way. And it's not like I have knowledge or anybody else in this industry has knowledge that nobody knows. I mean, it's widely used. I mean, some form of what your idea or your technique is used somewhere else. You're not the genius that only knows the thing. So to keep it close at heart and not share it, I think it's just, I don't know. it doesn't help anybody.
Sure. And like you said, it doesn't improve relationships. And I think that's what's more important in business nowadays are the relationships that you build. So, Jeff, what's your take on all that?
It's interesting. It really is. Trying to make sure that I repeat the question.
Yeah. Just this whole idea of the trade secret and the shift that you've seen in your time in the industry from, like you said, when you were first starting out, somebody said, well, I can't tell you that, that's a trade secret kind of thing, to now where, I mean, it seems like everybody's got a YouTube channel now and all that kind of fun stuff, which, I think can be good and bad, but at the same time, people are more willing to share and build partnerships like Justin talked about. So how have you seen that change from this idea of a trade secret to a more open, everybody helping everybody a little bit more kind of scenario?
So when I initially started, I started doing patches. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I reached out to somebody that actually made patches on their machine, because a lot of times when you ask who makes patches, you find out that nobody makes them but somewhere in another country. And the person that I asked, I'm like, what stabilizer and fabric should I use? And he's like, that's a trade secret. I was like, that's not a trade secret. Can you just tell me? And he said, no. So, what I have found with helping people is if you're willing to invest that little bit of time into them, they're going to say, you know what, he really helped me. I want to help him. And you're going to, that's where you build that bond that goes back and forth. And it may just be like what Justin said, that he helped teach these guys to digitize, and they're still his customer. When they need a problem, they're going to go to the person that helped them, and they're going to give them business. And so if I can't do something in-house, I'll ask Justin if he can do it. Or I'll ask, or I could openly ask in the group. If I know that somebody that's good at it, I'll ask them. But I'm going to look at the names that have helped me first.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes into that it's either you shun people, which is really kind of what it is,
Yeah.
or you help them. And then when they have a problem, they're going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, this is beyond my capabilities. Can you do it for me? Or, I need somebody to digitize. Can you be my digitizer? Because you helped sit down and explain to me why this is the way that it is.
Yeah, 100%. And, I'm going to say my controversial thing here. This is why at shops I've worked as an embroiderer, why I handed over DST files. When someone's already looking to leave, they're going to leave. If they're looking to leave, they're going to leave. And trying to tell them, no, you can't leave. I'm going to try and hold you hostage. I'm going to try and pin you down. So far, I haven't seen it work real well for most people. You can do that. You can hold them hostage if you want to. The truth of the matter is, if you hand out the file and go, you know what, if you don't like the quality of the person you're going to deal with next, I'd like to have you come back. Absolutely. I have found 100% more likely they're going to come back when things don't, when the quality isn't what they want, when the experience isn't what they want from someone else. Whereas trying to hold on to them, and same thing like Justin said, teaching somebody, you're like, okay, they were already looking to learn. If you don't teach them, someone's going to teach them. That's going to happen now. They're looking to learn. Yeah. So trying to hold on to them and put down your iron fist and say, you're staying with me, I'm going to keep your business. No, you're not. That's not likely. And whereas now you've got this relationship with them, you've done the good work with them, and they're going to bring the harder stuff to you. The stuff takes longer. That honestly, sometimes the stuff you can charge more for anyway. Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to understand that that partnership benefits us all. Though I want to get into embroidery. I know we haven't talked enough embroidery stuff.
Can I get a couple of the comments in here real quick,
yes,
and then
please.
Yes, let's get to embroidery. We need to get to that.
I want at least a couple.
And we've got the embroidery nerds with us. So what the heck are we doing here?
A little bonus time. It won't kill us.
Yeah. We'll do a little bonus time here. Crystal says keeping trade secrets isn't going to help the trade move forward and improve as a whole. It's nice to share knowledge and tips. Yes. Dale says trade secrets are not secret. It is sharing of experience and best practices. Folks that claim trade secrets are trying to set folks up for failure at their expense. And then Brian says one of our driving philosophies at Embrilliance is that there are no secrets. That said, even though the knowledge may be available freely, having an educator to navigate it for you truly adds value and is worth paying them for. We talk about that inside of our success group all the time.
for sure.
Could you find out a lot of the information on your own? Absolutely. It's all, but can you, do it, have that support, have that community? We want to accelerate people's business growth. So anyhow, let's talk some embroidery, guys. Eric, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Come on, rapid fire. There's got to be some questions where we just get right into it. So as someone who's spent a lot of time answering questions, and it's spent, I say that in past tense, like I'm not literally going to answer questions right after this. But I have to ask, what do you guys think are the most frequently asked questions? We all know the groups have that rotation, the 10 questions that keep coming back. Which ones are your hits? Justin, let's start with you. What are your hits for that frequently asked embroidery question?
Well, 3D is a big one, because it's not just, embroider, done, trim, fold, it's gone. There's a lot to it. And actually in our first part of the webinar, that's kind of what we covered, is the whole process from start to finish. And there's a little bit more attention that you have to do when it comes to 3D foam as far as cleanup at the end. But I think novices to that, they just think that it comes off the machine like normal and it should look good. And they're having issues. The other one that I think I see the most is small lettering. I mean, it's the worst in embroidery, and people want to see that nice clean edge like they see in print. So there's a lot of questions on the small lettering and how to get it done.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Those are two of the big ones forever. Every time I feel bad about teaching small lettering again, I have to realize that someone new is going to show up and ask it. So why don't we go again? So Jeff, what about you? What are your top digitizing embroidery questions you answer all the time?
So small lettering, underlay and travel stitch length is something that a lot of people don't understand and often miss, which causes problems with other things. So that push and pull compensation, and the number one question I see everywhere all the time is, how much should I charge for a hat with 3,000 logos on it, or 3,000 stitches on it, a jacket back with 180,000 stitches? How much should I charge for?
Now, what I have to do with this is, let's go by a show of hands. Who never wants to hear $1 per thousand again? All right. So if you guys are wondering, consensus at the table, $1 per thousand might not be the only way to price embroidery. I know we hear that all the time. I know every time I've done a pricing class, absolutely people are in there. And also, I'm going to preemptively say, I think this is part of the underlay thing. How many people don't know how to inset an edge run underlay, and that the distance of inset from the edges is part of why it's popping out when things are shifting? Everybody. Yeah. Well, Aaron, but Aaron doesn't know any of these things.
Well, Eric, let's talk about 3D foam here.
Yeah, no, I want to get into this. You guys are one day away from the second session. So by the way, everybody, we're going to put up links. Second session, you can still sign up for it, and there's replays. So you can always buy into the replays later. So if you guys are hearing us on the podcast later, still go back and get Justin's second session for foam, and the first session, you can still get these. But knowing that you guys are doing that, do you think that when there's this kind of call, I think there's a lot more now technique specific requests for classes. It used to be where I had a lot of digitizing 101. I still think there's plenty of that 101 stuff that your people are asking for, but there's more and more people who want to get into these specialty treatments of one kind or another. Why did you go with 3D foam, and what are you kind of excited to teach in this second session? Of course, Justin, I'm going to lead off with you on this.
The 3D foam thing, I think it sparked with seeing a lot of questions in the groups about 3D foam, and like I said earlier, I love doing it. I love experimenting, doing new things, failing. Even the other day, trying to run a sample that I was going to put out to show some techniques, I failed miserably. It was like, yeah, that's not going out. But yeah, I think it's a neat aspect to embroidery. It stands out from just the regular flat corporate logos that I'm doing on a daily basis. I think it's a break in my monotonous work too. Doing something like 3D foam, where it's not just the fill stitch, satin stitch, running stitch type thing. As far as tomorrow's webinar, like I said, the first part's a little bit more of the overall just general basics on on the machine and in the cleanup and the materials that you need. This is going to get a little bit more into the creative side of things, a little bit more into the digitizing, not full on a digitizing class, but just some techniques that you could use to get your designs to work better for you, and getting a little bit more into the artistic side, some multimedia, doing different layers of foam, stuff like that, adding texture to the foam, stuff like that.
Cool.
That's awesome. I have to agree with you on that one. What people don't want to know is digitizers, especially if you've done this for some time, you've done thousands upon thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of files, and a lot of them are fill stitch, satin stitch, run stitch, travel, fill stitch, satin stitch, run stitch, travel. And that's kind of what they are. So I think even we are all kind of excited when we get a crazy logo. Maybe we get a little apprehension the first time we see it. But after that first apprehension, that's, you get that excitement. Though what I love to hear, I'm not the only person who cops to being like the patron saint of lost embroidery. Thank you, Justin, for admitting that you wrecked something in the last week. I'll raise my hand, and my name is Eric, and I wrecked a sample in the last week too. Hard. I did some patch testing on a new kind of plastic substrate, and apparently if you push it too hard, that'll tear right out. So if you don't know that about plastic on patches, you can tear it right out with bad technique. Yeah. But anyway, I think that's the cool thing I like to see about the technique specific stuff, though, is you get to drill down a little bit and get creative. And I really do love that stuff. So Jeff, what do you feel about, what are you excited about seeing as far as the reaction for the next class too?
So I'm really excited when Justin's, he's going to share his information, and the thing that I'm most excited for, and I'm looking forward to, and I'm hoping that happens, is I'm going to see people that he's helped posting pictures of projects that they're proud of.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's very rewarding as somebody who's helping when somebody takes a picture of it and they're like, they helped me, look, I'm proud of this. And even if it's something that they post that people go, oh, it could be improved, and I'm saying that in a really polite way, it's still something that they're proud of, and they took a step from where they were to where they were going, and I'm excited to see Justin be part of that step that helps them get to another level.
Nice.
That's awesome. And I'll say,
good job.
Yeah, totally. High five on that for everybody.
Cool.
And I think that's something we can all, as all of us who teach can attest to. Having someone come back and say, you helped, it means more than you think. So everybody who's thanking the Embroidery Nerd guys in the comments, share some work. Share some work in their group, share some work, and tag them. Because honestly, I'll speak for them because I feel like I can. I know that's rude, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because they're probably too nice to say it, they would love to hear that stuff and love to see that stuff too. I mean, Jeff said share stuff, but seriously, that stuff is the air we all breathe when we're doing this education that's free and that we're working day in, day out and answering these questions. The air we breathe is you guys getting better and learning. So I really do. I want to say thank you for saying that out loud because we do appreciate it.
I'm going to shameless plug here, but if you do share your content and you use the hashtag EMBNerd, and I share your post on our page, I will mail you a little nerd star.
This is awesome. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and I'll even help you out there. Hashtag EMBNerd if you want to get your own, I believe that is a PVC patch, yes?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Little PVC molded patch of the Nerd Star, which is awesome. So they are actively getting people involved over there, and you really, you deserve yourself to go see their group. And I'm going to say that's, from the bottom of my heart, they're doing great work out there, which we're going to share it again, but I made a bit.ly link, bit.ly/mnerdgroup if you want to see what's going on in the Facebook group and join. But hey, follow the rules and answer the questions. All right. So before we get done, I know we kind of bled over into bonus time. I know rather than hold you guys for forever, because we also, by the way, have a 5 things from Justin. So we have 5 things, and it's not one of us filling in at the last minute. It's actually real valuable 5 things from Justin. Let's just go ahead and say what you guys are doing, where can we find you, what's coming up next, and what should we be looking out for in the near future?
I'll go first. We'll go clockwise as Justin starts to open his mouth and talk. So you guys can find me at FillerEmbroideryWorks.com, TheEmbroideryNerd.com, Facebook, the Embroidery Nerd group, and the Embroidery Nerd page, and of course my business page. Coming up for the Embroidery Nerd next. Justin's going to be doing his webinar. We've been talking with Lee Caraselli about Threadworks. She wants to do a webinar on our platform with us, and we're working those details out with her. Justin's doing number 2 tomorrow, and his third part will be later on. And that is where you can find me and what is coming up next from the Embroidery Nerd.
Awesome.
Justin?
So, Justin.
You can find me at jadigitizing.com. I'm active on Facebook and social media at jadigitizing. I'm also always hanging out in the Embroidery Nerd Facebook group. So yeah, I got the webinar coming out tomorrow, second part of the 3-part series. Looking to do late June for part 3. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. Jeff and I have been producing some really neat stuff that we're going to be sharing with everybody. So that's pretty much what's going on. And like you said, Lee Caraselli is coming out with a webinar here soon on our platform. So after that, I think we need to sit down and plan some new stuff for everybody.
Cool.
Sounds
Looking forward
awesome.
to seeing what you guys got coming up, and definitely keep
And
us
for you
posted, and we'll
podcast
be
listeners-
sharing it here on the 2 regular guys. All right, we have to get to, I promised Dan that we were going to get to his question from earlier on.
Okay, you're right. Let me go ahead and pull the banners down.
Dan says, is it possible to create circle patches, quote, efficiently on a regular embroidery machine? Justin, let's start with you this time.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to plug something for Jeff here. He has a faux marrow border that he developed called Fuller Border that is amazing. Actually, to tell you the truth, in my production, patches was something that we always subbed out to patch manufacturers. Now that I've used his border, not only am I getting requests from my digitizing customers that know about it, that want to make patches, but I've been using it in-house, and it's the closest thing that you can get to a marrowed edge. So absolutely, when you have the right tools and you there's a couple different ways you can do it on an embroidery machine. But once you find the way that works best for you, absolutely it can be done.
All right. So I should have started with Jeff first. So Jeff, anything else to share on that?
Justin answered everything.
Yeah.
So really it comes down to knowing how to replicate the patches in your hoop and having your process figured out. And whatever that process is, there's many different ones. There's, water soluble stabilizer, there's plastic backings, there's hot cut edges, applique edges. You got to try each of them and figure out which one works best for you. And I'm going to plug that guy up there because that's the guy that taught me how to do patches with one of his articles. And he's doing Eric's got a webinar coming up on patches. And I highly recommend it because, like I said, I learned from his articles that he put out how to do patches because everybody else said trade secret. And so I'm really excited for his class, and I think that you guys should join.
So because we're in the mutual love circle here, I'm going to put this back up again. If you want more stuff from from Jeff, check out FullerEmbroideryWorks.com. And if you want great digitizing, I have sent, now by the way, this is the thing I don't always tell people, I have sent my own clients to Justin. So if you put stock in what I think about it, digitizing, you can also check out Jay Digitizing for your own digitizing too. I've sent people who want me to do work to him. So so feel free to take that any way you like. It means exactly what you think it means. It means I trust his work. Nice. So in that case, both of you guys are awesome. And yes, I do have a webinar coming up. I'll say this. The other thing about patches being efficient, there's efficient and there's profitable. And if you charge the right amount, slow patches are still profitable. So, and believe me, I've charged a whole lot for really easy patches. Just depends on who you're charging and why. So that's also value proposition stuff, which, by the way, I partially learned from this guy right here, Aaron Montgomery, who talks about slogan value. So
hey, I want to share.
Check that out.
Eric. I want to share Crystal's comment here real quick. She says, looking forward to the webinar. Justin has upped his foam game since I used to work at the shop he manages. Love learning from him again, as well as everyone else here. So thanks for being here, Crystal.
I mean,
and
can we just
Cindy,
break
I
out
think
the
Eric
guitars?
answered your question about
I'm sorry
finding
about
stuff. Fuller Embroidery Works.
Well, Embroidery
Right.
Works is a place to find his border for sure. Go check that out. I sorry I was being funny while you're trying to talk, but I was like, let's just break out the guitars and sing Kumbaya and hang out, because we're just everybody loves everybody. But I love that about this group though. These are the groups that I want to be in. I don't like being in the snipey, awful groups where we're trying to put each other down or protect everything. I mean, the more open, and once again, from this guy, the more you have an abundance mindset, it seems like the more comes to you. That for me, and I'm not saying this in some sort of universal law of attraction fuzzy way. I mean, literally, the cooler you are, the more people want to work with you. That's how it is. And I feel like these guys are cool. So go check out what they're doing. So
It has been a blast hanging with the cool kids today, for sure.
I'm going to add something to that it ties back to the topic.
Sure.
Is that these guys?
Yeah,
they're my tribe.
The camera's tough.
Yes.
And so we all have a lot of mutual respect for each other because I value what they do and they value what I do. These guys are my tribe.
Same. And I'll say that's how we all get better, is by valuing what we do. And that's the thing. The embroidery is easier to charge for when everyone values it. If we try and, dirtball price each other or cut down somebody else's technique or whatever else we're doing, we're making embroidery look worse because the outside people don't know any different. I had somebody who once asked me, oh yeah, I want to get those embroidered. And I showed them embroidery and they said, oh no, the flat kind like you see on t-shirts. And I was like, screen printing? Yeah, that's not embroidery. That's how little some of our customers actually know about this. And of course, they're not in this arcane circle of embroidery that we are. So we might as well realize that if we just make cooler stuff, more people want it, and we don't have to kill each other to get that done. So yeah, Cindy brings I love that. Respect is the name of the game. Absolutely. We got mutual respect here.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for being on. That was awesome. We'll share the links again. If you guys are checking out in the comments, or our podcast people, come in, check out the comments on the live. Wish you could have been here, but I'm glad you're here on the replay. You can still get the recordings of the webinar. If not, if you're listening to this on Friday the 14th, it's tomorrow live. Get in now on the second session of Justin's Foam webinar. It's going to be well worth it, and the samples you've been sharing are awesome. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and we'll have a brief break, because what we're going to do is do 5 things. So we're going to bring in Justin for his 5 things. And as we do, we like to play in. So with that, here's 5 things. All right, Justin, you're on.
So what I got here is 5 keys to successful 3D puff embroidery on hats. So
Awesome.
Number 1, you got to have the design properly digitized. It's probably the number 1 most important thing is to have the design properly digitized for 3D, so you have the results that you're wanting. Number 2 is the actual materials you use as far as the foam. You need a high density foam, quality high density foam. A lot of the foams that you see in craft stores and stuff, they're not really geared towards embroidery like this. They tend to smash down. They're not as stiff, so you can get a nice clean edge when you're removing the excess foam. Quality hats. The hat itself is definitely a factor in if the 3D foam is going to sew properly. If you have a really low quality hat that has no structure to it, it's not going to take well to the amount of stitches that you're doing on it, and it's not going to give you that foundation that you need to embroider that foam on. There's also hats that unfortunately the seam down the center is quite thick, so you may have some issues going through that many layers of material when you're trying to sew your designs. The correct tools. If you see my part 1 of my webinar, you're going to see the cleanup process. When you're poking in the excess foam after an embroider's, heating the foam up to shrink it up and get all those little fuzzy edges out. The correct tools are definitely needed. And at the very end is the proper cleanup. It's unfortunately 3D is a little bit more expensive than just regular embroidery. You're going to have some cleanup after the embroidery process, and I think that's the most important, other than the digitizing, to get that nice finished look that you're looking for.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Great 5 things there, Justin. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate both of your time today, and looking forward to seeing what you guys have coming up in the future. Like I said, please make sure you're sharing with us. We want to share it here on the Two Regular Guys, and yeah, just can't thank you enough for your time here today, guys. So appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Awesome.
I
We appreciate being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great day, guys.
That was awesome. I mean, come on. You can't really do better than that, both for community building and for education. Those guys are just great.
Yeah, I mean, we covered so many bases, and I love that, I don't know if you were attempting to not quote unquote steal my line, but you alluded to it a lot of times. You're always welcome to say it, but this whole idea of a rising tide lifts all boats is definitely, and it's not really my line either. Anyhow. So no, that's what we love about being able to talk to guys like that, because you get that sense, right? You ask Jeff why he did this, because he wants to share. He wants to be able to. It's not because he wants to become a bazillionaire and all these other personal things. It's this idea of, you know what, if our tribe, our community gets better, everybody's going to do better. And I think if we can embrace that as an industry, and I feel like we're heading in the right direction. It's a shift, right? It's just a shift in the way business is done these days. Social media obviously has changed that a lot, and I'm glad to see people embracing that. So,
well, the amount of love we're getting in the comments, we've got Crystal says it's a great show. Cindy saying love the nerds. Curtis is happy with the show. I mean, all these people like snuck out. They love the show. Everything's good, and I think that the reason you see it is because they are out there taking care of people. But what you're also going to see is, trust me, that they're going to get more support when they need it. We all want to support what they're doing too. And that's the thing to remember in our own businesses too, is that's developing that tribe is also how we get a support network. And it's something we sometimes have lagged. I think in the modern world, we can occasionally get really disconnected from each other. And this is the good side. There's certainly a bad side to social media, the internet, and everything else. And we've talked about it many times. But the good side of it is the ability across the country, across countries, across the world, to make these communities that have that kind of common goal and really believe in each other. And like I said, these guys exemplify that.
Totally. All right, Eric. Well, we're well into bonus time.
Sure.
Shocker, right? That you and I were able to have bonus time.
As people say about my show, 15 minutes after, we're officially in bonus time. I think that's Jeff who brought that one up first.
Well, we are officially in bonus time then.
Officially.
Speaking of that, though,
yes.
The one time that you and I never have bonus time is coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. So we'll be doing the half here, 11:30 Central of the Universe time, Central time. So you want to catch that coming up here shortly. Just bounce over to, you can go to Live OSG, which gets you to the Our Success Group YouTube page, or you can search for Eric Campbell on YouTube and find it there. You can also find it on Facebook at our Facebook page, facebook.com/Our Success Group Pro, or again, search for Eric Campbell. And so any of those 4 places, a 30-minute Q&A session where Eric and I get to interact, have some fun, answer questions, and it's always 30 minutes.
Yeah, and trust me, I don't think anybody's told us yet who's making book on who gets cut off, but the bets keep flying.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone always gets cut off because we can never keep it to 30 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. So that'll be a blast. And then if you do want to check out the website, not a whole lot there yet, but someday we'll get enough time to get to that. The half.club is where you can check that out. So
we may have to see about Clubhouse there, man. Now that we got the .club and everybody's
Android,
on Clubhouse.
Clubhouse is now on Android, so I actually keep pulling it up, but I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it yet. Anyway, and while we're talking about clubs, we've got the half.club, and then our Success Group has got a new program called Club OSG. So inside of our private members group for OSG, there's a ton of resources, some live videos, the Small Business Saturdays now inside of our private members group. But we were getting people that, wanted to kind of see what our Success Group was all about. So we've made Club OSG available at kind of a lower price point, so people can kind of get a feel for it, jump in there and check it out. So if you want to check that out, go to oursuccessgroup.com/Club OSG. And so that's what I've got going on. Eric, what about you? What's coming up for you here?
Well, today, as people know, Education Friday, I'll be doing the take up after the half later on today. And today is an interesting one because it's about what we call digitizing wrong to embroider right. And I'm going to talk about the kind of counterintuitive ways that we can use embroidery to get results. And honestly, part of it is the happy accidents you come across when you're trying to do things and you figure out new ways to approach kind of the visual metaphor of embroidery or the way that we make marks with stitches. And honestly, this is really about some things that I was taught early on or that I learned early on that I realized you can now dismantle in order to do things differently. We get learned these kind of standards, or we learn these standards, we got taught these standards, and it turns out that sometimes getting to turn those on their head is how we make new, different kind of techniques and treatments. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and about just the concept of that we can have happy accidents or subvert those standards to make new things happen. So that's going to happen today. If you check out ericcampbell.com, the tab at the top labeled the take up would be there. Also, I've got a direct link for it here as well. If you want to check that out, it's bit.ly/ECWrong, because I think that's sometimes people like to have a direct link. That's the show today. If you put yourself on the reminder, it'll let you know. And that's on YouTube if you don't get it here. But you can get it here on my channel, on any of the places where you find Eric Campbell, that weird little H, that is me, and you'll be able to listen to the show. So yeah, that should be what's going on today. And after that, we actually have dates. We have things up for the patch webinar that we mentioned earlier today. So my new webinar is coming up, Understanding Emblems, Digitizing Production Styles and Sales. If you want to learn more about running small run patches in-house and the range of products in the patch world and how to sell them, we're going to be able to finally give you some details on that stuff. And the great thing is, though I'm going to give you the link to that, we actually have a free kind of content webinar coming up called Why Patches. And that's here at decorators.education/why patches coming up on the 22nd, where you're going to learn a little bit about why you might want to make small run patches in-house. And I'll kind of give you a brief look at what's going to happen as far as the actual webinar coming up on the 29th. But if you're already interested in the webinar on the 29th, you want to jump right straight to finding out more about that, you can go to decorators.education/emblems to get more information and get on the list there. So, like I said, we're coming up there. I would say, hey, watch for this stuff. Go to the White Patches show, see if you want to hear more about that. And honestly, watch for offers there to get in on the action. But yeah, we're going to talk about smaller in patches. And part of that is definitely going to be technique. I'll talk about digitizing for them and all the different ways in which they can be made. But I'm also going to get into things like the other kinds of patches that are out there, what they're good for, and reasons why you might want to sell them, which was a little bit will be hinted in that Why Patches free webinar.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So definitely check that out. And I put the link in the comments there for folks if you want to click directly on those as well. Perfect. So Terry has coming up here. Let's just get him. We don't want to forget about Terry.
Terry out traveling right now.
So Terry's got his complete screen printing business course at Workhorse Products, and that's going to be happening July 10th through the 11th. And these classes do sell out. So make sure that you sign up. And I know that Phoenix in July is not what everybody's going, oh, I can't wait to get to 110 degrees. But Workhorse is a beautiful facility. It's all indoors. You're all taken care of. You won't even know that you're in the middle of a well, hell, really. But I'm kidding. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and lived there for a
all
good
of us
chunk of my
desert
life.
people
So
know, stay inside.
The summers are tough, but you know what? You can't beat the rest of the time except for those 3 months. But July 10th through the 11th, again, totally. Terry's been selling out those classes, so people are really clamoring for them. They're going great. And then if Phoenix, Arizona is not your place and you want something more in the Midwest here, he's also presenting the same course at Atlas Screen Supply in Chicago. And their May date is sold out, but their next class will be coming up August 21st to the 22nd. So reach out to Atlas Screen Supply. Maybe you can get on the waiting list for that sold out class as well. But you can find all of the details and find about all the things Terry has coming up at his website, terrycombs.com.
So we'll have to watch into this episode. Every episode from here on out, I bet you there'll be some updates because it really looks like the people are signing up. The shows are starting to come back up. So watch this space, folks.
Yep. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right. Well, Eric, we have come to the close of this show. We want to thank Jeff and Justin, the Embroidery Nerd Group, the Fuller Embroidery Works, JA Digitizing, the entire community there. We really appreciate Jeff and Justin's time. We really appreciate everything they're doing for the embroidery world and the decorating world as a whole. Some fantastic stuff coming from those guys. So make sure that you thank them for all that they're doing. So, and we appreciate their time here today. And so it was awesome, Eric.
Oh, I'm so glad that we could bring him in, and I'm glad that I got to kind of take the seat. I mean, we all miss Terry. I know Terry's the talent, but I'm pretty happy that I got to be, in the co-host seat for this one to talk to these guys. Because, like I said, some of my favorite guys, and like Jeff said, absolutely part of my tribe. So happy to have them in and be on this side of the microphone this week.
Yep, definitely. So Eric, next week we're going to be welcoming in a friend that you mentioned earlier, Clay Barbara from CorelTrainer.com. And Clay's going to talk to us a little bit about trade shows and training and that kind of stuff. So kind of a little bit of a continuation of some things we talked about today, but kind of what's happening out in some of these live spaces and things like that. He is a master of getting out and teaching live. In fact, doing that in Texas as we speak right now. So and since he is CorelTrainer.com, I'm sure we'll be able to answer lots of Corel questions as well. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Clay next week, Eric.
Absolutely. Always great to see what he's up to, and he's always a good interview. But until then, folks, I'm Eric Campbell sitting in for Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the Two Regular Guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.